He pointed at me. As they carried him into the back of the ambulance, strapped down and sobbing, my roommate lifted one trembling arm and pointed back at the house, at the front window where I stood, directly, unmistakably, at me. And for one frozen second, one of the medics turned and looked too. Then she shivered, shook off some imagined chill, and turned away. As if there was nothing there. As if I wasn't standing in the window at all. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back. Let me tell it the way it happened, because I've had 3 days alone in this house to think about it, and I still don't understand all of it. Maybe you will. Maybe one of you out there will read this and tell me what I am. My roommate doesn't like me very much. That was the first thing I learned about him, and for the longest time it was the only thing I knew for certain. I remember introducing myself. It was supposed to be a small, friendly moment, the kind of thing you do when you find yourself sharing a house with a stranger. I came around the corner into the kitchen, and I said hello, told him my name, and he was so startled he nearly fell out of his chair. The whole chair tipped back on 2 legs, his arms windmilling, his coffee sloshing over the rim of the mug and across the table. I chuckled, I couldn't help it, it was almost funny, and then immediately I felt terrible, and I tried to apologize. I tried to reassure him. Hey, sorry, didn't mean to scare you, I'm harmless, I promise. He didn't say a word. He just stood up, very slowly, the way you back away from a dog you didn't trust, and he left the room. I told myself he was shy. Some people are like that. Some people need time to warm up to a new face in their space. So I gave him time. A few days later I came across him in the living room, watching television. The light from the screen was flickering across his face, blue and gray and stuttering, and he had this hollow, scooped-out look to him, like a man who hadn't slept in a week. I tried again. I kept it light. Hey, I said. How's your day been? He didn't turn around. He didn't answer. Instead he reached for the remote, and he turned the volume up and up and up, past the point of comfort, past the point of sense, until the sound came out distorted and crackling, the speakers blown out and screaming, a wall of noise so loud it seemed to push against the walls of the house. He just sat there, staring at the screen, drowning in it. Drowning out something. I didn't understand what. I tried to interact with him only a few more times after that. Each time, he ignored me completely, as if I simply wasn't there, as if my voice were a draft under a door. Once, and this is the one that stayed with me, I tapped him on the shoulder. Nothing dramatic. I was only trying to get past him in the narrow hallway, and I reached out and touched his shoulder the way anyone would, excuse me, coming through. He came apart. He practically jumped out of his skin. He made a sound I'd never heard a grown man make, a high, strangled gasp, and he bolted. He ran for his room and slammed the door so hard the pictures rattled on the walls. And then I heard it, the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floorboards, scraping, groaning, settling against the inside of the door. He was barricading himself in. Against me. I stood in that hallway for a long time, my hands still half raised, and I thought, what is wrong with this man? It would be a while before I understood I was asking the wrong question. I should tell you about the house, because the house matters. The house is where all of this lives. His housekeeping skills did nothing to make up for his coldness. He was, to be blunt, the worst person to share a home with that I could imagine. He rarely cleaned up after himself. His dishes sat piled in the sink in a leaning gray tower, crusted and sour, and the smell of them drifted through the whole ground floor, that thick, organic, rotting sweet smell of food left. Too long. Dust gathered in the corners and along the baseboards, soft gray drifts of it, undisturbed. And the windows were the strangest part. He had covered every single one of them with old newspaper, sheet after yellowing sheet taped edge to edge, so that no light came through except a sick amber glow during the day and nothing at all at night. The house existed in a permanent dimness, a held-breath twilight that never changed no matter the hour. You lost track of time in there. You lost track of whether it was morning or evening, whether the sun was up or down, because it was always the same brown half-dark. And he had taken down all the mirrors. Every one of them. There were pale rectangles on the walls where they used to hang, ghosts of frames in the faded paint. There wasn't a single reflective surface left in the entire house. No mirrors, no glass photo frames, not even a piece of shiny cutlery in the drawers. He'd replaced everything with cheap plastic forks and spoons, the disposable kind, so that there was nothing, nowhere, that could catch and throw back a reflection. I didn't understand it. I'll be honest, it unsettled me, in a way I couldn't name. The covered windows, the missing mirrors, the plastic everything. It felt deliberate. It felt like a man building a cell around himself, one small precaution at a time. I tried, once, to peel some of the newspaper off a window. I wanted light. I wanted to see out, to remember there was a world beyond those brown walls. I'd barely gotten a corner loose, just a strip of it curling back to show a thin blade of daylight, and he screamed at me. He came flying out of nowhere, screaming wordlessly, his face white and stretched, his eyes huge, and he screamed until I stopped, until I backed away with my hands up, until I retreated all the way across the room. Then he stood there shaking, breathing hard, staring at the loose corner of paper as if it were a wound. He disappeared into his room after that. And an hour or so later, when I passed through again, the paper had been replaced. Smoothed flat. Retaped. The blade of daylight gone, sealed over, as if it had never been there at all. Have you ever felt like something was watching you? That prickle at the back of the neck, that certainty that you are not as alone as the room insists. Tell me in the comments. Because I need to understand what I'm about to tell you, and I think some of you already know. After the window, I kept mostly to myself. It seemed kindest. I didn't want to frighten him anymore, I genuinely didn't, whatever you might come to think of me by the end of this. I just wanted to coexist. So I kept my distance. I stayed out of his way. Of course we still crossed paths, it's a small house, and he was always home, always there, drifting from room to room like a man pacing a hospital ward. But he never stayed in the same room as me for long. The moment I entered, he would leave. The moment I sat, he would rise. We moved around each other like two magnets turned the wrong way, always repelling, never touching. I thought I'd found a solution. To avoid startling him, because that seemed to be the thing that hurt him most, the surprise of me, I started announcing myself. I'd call out softly where I was and where I was going. I'm in the kitchen now. I'm coming down the stairs. I'm going to be in the living room for a while. I thought it was considerate. I thought it would let him keep his distance in peace, knowing where I'd be so he could be somewhere else. It made things worse. So much worse. When I started announcing myself, he started whispering. Always when he thought I couldn't hear, always under his breath, just at the edge of sound, but I could hear it. A low, frantic muttering, the same handful of words over and over with the same desperate rhythm to them each time. I could never quite make them out. They had the cadence of a prayer, or a chant, or a child reciting something to ward off the dark. The same shape, the same beat, again and again, his lips moving fast, his eyes fixed on the middle distance. It frightened me. I'll admit that. It frightened me more than the screaming had. So I stopped. I stopped announcing myself. I went quiet, and small, and still, and I retreated to the one place in that house that felt like mine. My room. He never came near my room. That was the one mercy in all of it. He barely seemed to acknowledge it existed. He would walk down the hall and his eyes would slide right past my door as if it were just more wall. My room was my sanctuary, the place I went to escape his strangeness after a long day of orbiting him through the gloom. I'd close the door and sit in the quiet and feel, for a little while, almost normal. Almost like a person. And then, 3 days ago, they came for him. I was up in my room. It was that brown, timeless half-dark, and the house was doing its usual settling and creaking, when suddenly there was a loud bang on the front door. Not a knock. A pounding. Fist on wood, hard and urgent, and then the door burst open. I heard it swing wide and crash against the wall, followed by footsteps. Multiple footsteps, heavy and purposeful, spreading out across the ground floor. I stayed where I was. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to expect. Strangers, in the house, more people than had set foot inside in all the time I'd been there. I crept to my door and listened. A voice floated up the stairs. Soft, muffled, careful, a woman's voice, as best I could tell, speaking in the slow gentle tones you'd use with someone fragile. It's all right. We're here to help. Can you come with us? That kind of thing. A few words exchanged that I couldn't catch. My roommate's voice, cracked and rising. And then, another bang. A scuffle. And then I could hear him sobbing. Great heaving sobs, the sound of a man utterly broken, and the sound got louder as they brought him toward the front of the house, and then fainter as they took him out through the door, and I understood, with a slow cold dread, that he was being taken away. He was being carried out of his own home. I ran to the window at the front of the house. I tore at the newspaper, his newspaper, the paper he'd screamed at me for touching. I ripped it off in great handfuls, and I pressed my face to the glass. There was an ambulance in the street, its back doors open. And there he was, my roommate, strapped to a gurney, 2 paramedics guiding it across the lawn. There were neighbors, too, people standing on the sidewalk, on their own porches, hands pressed over their mouths, heads bowed. I didn't even know we had neighbors. In all my time in that house I had never once seen another living soul outside it. But there they were, a small grieving crowd of them, watching this man be taken away. And as they reached the ambulance, as they prepared to lift the gurney inside, he did one last thing. He turned his head. He found the window. He found me. And he lifted his arm and he pointed. Directly at me. One of the medics followed the line of his arm. She turned and looked up at the window where I stood with the torn newspaper hanging from my hands. And she looked right through me. A small shiver went through her. She rubbed her arms, glanced at the sky as if a cold wind had cut across the yard, and then she turned back to her patient and helped lift him into the ambulance. The doors closed. The engine started. And they drove him away into a daylight I hadn't seen in longer than I could remember. No one came back for me. No one knocked on my door, no one called my name, no one climbed the stairs to check the rest of the house. They just left. For the first time in as long as I could recall, I was alone. That was 3 days ago. I keep expecting him to come back. I don't know why. I didn't even like him. He was cold and frightened and strange, and he never once treated me as anything but a horror to be endured. But he was constant. He was the one fixed point in my small brown world, the other heartbeat in the house, and now he's gone, and the silence he left behind is enormous. The house feels hollowed out. It feels like a held breath that will never be let go. I wandered the rooms for 2 days. I didn't know what to do with myself. And then, last night, I did something I had never done before, something I'm not proud of. I went into his room. I had never set foot in there. Not once. It was the one boundary I had always respected, his door, his space, the inner sanctum he barricaded himself into night after night. But the door was wide open now, the way they'd left it, and I had nothing else, no one else, no idea what else to do. So I went in. If this story is keeping you up, if you're lying in the dark right now with the covers pulled a little higher, subscribe. We post new horror every single night. You're going to want company for what comes next. His room was a ruin. The first thing was the smell, that thick wall of rot, mold and old food and something underneath it I didn't want to name. Newspapers were piled high in every corner, yellowing towers of them, the same paper he'd plastered over the windows. Empty takeout containers were scattered across the floor, their contents gone furry and green and black, and somewhere in all of it, flies were buzzing, a low, busy droning, circling, searching for something I refused to picture. There were grooves worn into the floorboards. Pale, polished tracks in the old wood, leading from the doorway straight across the room to his dresser, the way a path gets worn into a carpet by years of the same footsteps. As if he had walked that line, doorway to dresser and back, 10,000 times. As if he had paced it in the dark, again and again, for far longer than I'd been in the house. The only clean surface in the whole filthy room was his desk. A laptop sat open in the center of it, dark and asleep. Behind it, pinned to a corkboard, was a scattering of notes, handwritten scraps, printouts, slips of paper. I crossed the room, my feet finding those worn grooves in the floor without my meaning to, and I sat down in his chair, and I touched the laptop. It woke. The screen glowed. And it asked me for a password. I scanned the notes on the corkboard, looking for some hint, some number scrawled in a margin. But I didn't need them. My fingers were already moving. They found the keys on their own, the way your hand finds a light switch in your own home in the dark, without thought, without searching. Numbers. 0, 2, 0, 2, 2, 6. 020226, the screen unlocked. I didn't ask myself how I knew it. I should have. But I didn't. The desktop was chaos. Dozens of saved notepad files, browser shortcuts, links scattered everywhere like leaves. I started opening things at random. The browser history was a map of a man drowning. Self-help pages. Articles on grief, how to cope, how to survive it, how to get out of bed in the morning when the morning means nothing. Coping strategies. Support groups. The desperate, methodical research of someone trying very hard to save himself. And then the searches changed. The more recent ones turned strange, and dark, and frightened. Seeing things that aren't there. Hearing voices. Feeling a presence. Unwanted spirits. How to make it leave. Exorcism. How to get rid of a ghost. His coping mechanisms had failed him. Whatever he'd been trying to outrun had caught him, and these last searches were the searches of a cornered animal. I felt a wave of something almost like grief, myself. I wished I'd tried harder to reach him. I wished I'd understood. Maybe I could have helped. Maybe if he'd let me close enough, I could have. I opened the notepad files. A journal. He'd dated them. It started on the 28th of March. My therapist wants me to write a journal, like I'm a 14-year-old schoolgirl. Nothing else has worked, so why not? Right? I can still see it, hear it, the smell of burning oil and rubber and something else. I want it to stop. I wish I had them back. I'm so sorry. Elias. Elias. That was his name. After all this time, I learned my roommate's name from a document on a screen. Elias. I read on. I jumped ahead a few days. March 31st. I keep seeing it, standing there. Watching me. It doesn't do anything. It just watches. It's better when it's dark, I can't see it in the dark. I've blocked the windows and taken down the mirrors. If I stop looking, maybe it will leave me alone. Elias. The windows. The mirrors. A cold feeling began to gather at the base of my spine, slow and creeping, like water rising. April 1st. It spoke to me. Hello, it said. Its voice, garbled, an amalgamation of theirs. One's own imagination can be very cruel, it would seem. I couldn't stand to hear it again, so I left the room. I don't know where it went after that. Elias. Hello. I remembered standing in the kitchen, saying hello, watching him nearly fall out of his chair. I kept reading. I couldn't stop now. April 2nd. This thing is growing bolder by the day. I saw it drift into the living room out of the corner of my eye. It sat down in the space next to me. I could feel it, so close. But I kept my eyes on the TV. Ignore it and it will go away. It tried to ask me about my day. It sounds so much like them, I barely held it together. I turned the volume up louder so I couldn't hear it. I'm sure I'll get complaints, but I don't think I could have stomached another word. Elias. How's your day been? I had said. And he had turned the volume up until the speakers screamed. The water was at my throat now. I was reading faster, my eyes flying down the screen, and some part of me already knew, already understood, and was begging the rest of me to stop. April 3rd. It touched me. Physically touched me. It wasn't in my head, I know it wasn't. It crept up behind me and it touched me, the bastard. The thing touched me. I ran as fast as I could up here and barricaded my door. It can't get me in here. I know it can't. I tapped him on the shoulder. In the hallway. Excuse me, coming through. And he barricaded his door. April 4th. It tried to peel off the newspapers. It wants me to see it. It is trying to torment me. It wants to torment me. I stared, for too long I stared at its face. I could make out some features. Of all of them. Her nose. His wide, innocent eyes. Oh, my sweet boy. I'm so sorry I've made you into this thing. I need to make it dark again. I stopped breathing. Or, I realized, with a strange slow horror, that I had not been breathing at all. That I could not remember the last time I had. Her nose. His wide, innocent eyes. I read on. My hands were not shaking, and somehow that was the most frightening thing of all. April 5th. Ignoring it seems to be working. I haven't seen much of it lately, and when I do, I immediately leave, and it leaves me alone. It doesn't follow. It doesn't talk to me. I think it's working. It's finally working. I'll be okay. I'm going to be okay. That was when I had gone quiet. When I had stopped announcing myself. When I had retreated to my room and tried to give him peace. April 6th. No. 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 It's telling me where it is in the house. Why? Why would it do that? Can it not tell I don't want it here? I want it gone, out of my life. I just have to keep reminding myself. I'll be okay, I'm going to be okay. I'll be okay, I'm going to be okay, that was the whispering. That frantic, rhythmic muttering I could never quite make out. I'll be okay. I'm going to be okay. Over and over, the same shape, the same desperate beat. And the thing that had been telling him where it was in the house, that was me. Announcing myself. I'm in the kitchen now. I'm coming down the stairs. I thought I was being kind. I thought I was sparing him the fright of my sudden presence. I was the considerate one. I was only trying to help. The last entry was dated April 6th as. Well. It was nothing but that one phrase, repeated down the entire page, line after line after line, the spaces between the words collapsing, the letters degrading into a single unbroken scream. I'll be okay, I'm going to be okay, I'll be okay, I'm going to be okay, it'll be okay, I'm going to be okay. He must have still been typing it when they came through the door. I powered down the laptop. I needed it to stop. I needed the room to stop, the words to stop, the slow cold water that had now closed completely over my head. I reached out and I held the button and the screen went dark. And in the black glass of the dead screen, for the first time, I saw my reflection. A pair of eyes looked back at me. Wide eyes. Misaligned, one sitting slightly higher than the other. Innocent eyes. A child's eyes. I tilted my head from side to side, the way a curious dog does when it hears a sound it doesn't understand. The reflection tilted its head too. I closed the laptop. Slowly. Gently. The way you'd close the lid on something you didn't want to wake. And there, in the dead center of the corkboard, larger than all the rest, was one final note. A newspaper clipping. The date at the top read February 2nd, 2026. Fatal crash on I-95. Father sole survivor. There was a photograph of a wreck, a car crushed and folded around itself, scorched black, the kind of wreck no one walks away from. And beneath the headline, two smaller pictures. A woman. And a little boy. I recognized their faces. I recognized the boy's face the way you recognize your own. Her nose. His wide, innocent eyes. February 2nd. 020226. The password my fingers had known without being told. The day the car left the road in the smell of burning oil and rubber and something else. The day a father became the sole survivor of his own family. The day we, stopped being okay. What would you have done? Sitting in that chair, in that filthy ruined room, staring at your own dead reflection and the picture of the child you used to be? I still wonder. I still wonder to this day. Elias is his name. My roommate. My father. I wonder when Elias is coming back. I didn't like him, I think. Or maybe I did, and I've simply forgotten what liking feels like, the way I've forgotten so many things. I know that he ran from me, and screamed at me, and barricaded his door against me, and covered the windows and took down the mirrors so he would never have to see my face. I know that I frightened him. I never meant to. I only wanted him to look at me. I only wanted him to say my name. I only wanted my day to be asked after, and answered, the way it used to be, before the road, before the fire, before the dark. I've booted the laptop back up to ask you all. To ask anyone who might be listening, anyone out there beyond the brown-papered windows of this hollow, silent house. Does anyone know where they take them? The people who scream a lot. The ones who get carried out on gurneys, pointing back at empty windows. Where do they go? Is there a place? Can you visit? Because I want to find Elias. I want to tell him I'm sorry. I want to tell him I never meant to be a thing. I want to tell him it's still me in here, somewhere, behind the misaligned eyes, his sweet boy, his innocent boy, just trying to say hello. Maybe he'll come back. Maybe if I wait here, in the dark, in the quiet, he'll come home and we can start again. I need him to come back. I need him to. Because I'll be honest with you, in these 3 days alone, these 3 long, silent, empty days in this house with no one left to follow from room to room, no one left to announce myself to, no one left to watch. I've started to feel something I can't remember ever feeling before. I can't remember feeling hungry before he left. We tell ourselves the dead are gone. That grief is a weight we carry forward, not a door we leave standing open behind us. But love is a kind of summoning, and longing is a kind of voice, and sometimes the thing that comes when you call it isn't the thing you lost. It only wears its face. It only borrows its eyes. And it waits, patient and innocent and starving, in the one house that still remembers its name, for someone, anyone, to finally turn around and say hello. Subscribe for more horror every single night. And if you want more stories that will keep you up, check out What the Wow Stories for the wildest relationship drama you've ever heard. Link below. Sleep well.